Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Prose podcast. I'm your host, Tally Shamus, and today I'm joined by literary agent Andie Smith to discuss her unconventional journey to becoming a literary agent, the traits she looks for in authors, and the emerging genre of ecofiction. Andie Smith is an associate agent at Creative Media Agency who has been obsessed with books from a young age. Growing up reading above her grade level in school, she was the girl who always had her nose in a book. When she discovered the agonizing pain of a book hangover after finishing a favorite series, Andie quickly learned she wanted to pursue a career in literature so she could be stuck in her favorite world forever. She has previously served as a writer and editor for several local newspapers and magazines in Central Florida. In 2022, she interned at Booker Albert Literary and was promoted to junior agent in 2023. After graduating with her master's in public administration, Andie joined the team at Creative Media Agency in 2025. She is still growing her list and welcoming authors to join her team. So, Andie, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm going to start by asking you about your writing journey and how you became an agent.
Ooh, yeah. I feel like everyone who has become an agent has a very unorthodox way of becoming an agent or getting into publishing. We have like the hardcore people who have wanted to work in publishing forever, and that's what they do. But then they have me, and I was going to school for something completely different. I was doing my master's in public administration, and I was writing at the time. So I started out as an author. I was querying, so I was familiar with that process. And I discovered that you could do internships for credit for my master's program. And I thought, well, how cool would it be to do some sort of internship in publishing? So I applied to way too many at that point. Uh, and ended up getting an internship at my former agency. And I think it was like 2 or 3 weeks into the internship where I was like, oh, what if I just did this for the rest of my life and not what I'm going to school for? So that was super fun. But it just kind of landed in my lap, I guess. It was a pretty lucky experience, and I've always loved books and being around anything in literature. So I guess I never thought that a career in publishing on the other side of things was possible. And it is. And now I am never going back to anything else.
That's incredible. So, did you find it difficult to secure that internship?
I applied to so many. Yeah, I would say it was pretty difficult. I didn't think I would get one at all. I was just sending out cold applications. And there's different websites. There's like a publishing jobs website that had a bunch of just postings, but also some agencies are quiet about internship postings and you just have to check their website. So I was constantly doing that and did not expect anything. But luckily got an email and I was like, is this fake? Is this a spam? Like, I don't know, but it was real. So yeah, it was pretty hard to do. I had no experience also. I don't know if that plays a factor. I had no publishing experience, but I spoke to my passion for writing, for reading, for the industry, and that hopefully made a difference.
Can you tell me a little bit about what you did in that internship, how the work was structured, and maybe some early lessons that you learned?
Yeah, and one thing I always not regret, but wish that I did was do different internships at different agencies because every agency operates differently. And so what you learn at one may not be the same way another one handles a certain process. So that's super helpful. So if I have any advice about internships, it's definitely that. But for me, mainly, my job was to read incoming queries and give my thoughts on them. It wasn't me making the decisions on them. That was reserved for the agent, but kind of just getting an insight into what a query looks like, learning how to evaluate a query, what makes it strong, what makes it stand out, learning how to evaluate pages then and what makes a query go from a query to a full request, and then reviewing those full manuscripts, partial manuscripts as well. And during my internship, my project for my master's program was actually implementing a critique process for the interns to use when evaluating manuscripts. So evaluating things like voice and writing, character development, plot development, things like that. So I implemented that sort of structure and how to evaluate a manuscript, and that helped me so much of just learning what to look for, what makes something stand out. But that was really the gist of what my internship was
Right.
queries and manuscripts.
Oh, that process sounds fascinating. Is that still something you use today, or is it more intuitive now?
It's definitely more intuitive now. I think it's very helpful though, and good to kind of lay things out, especially when I am going into revisions with an author or I'm preparing an edit letter. I do touch on different things like character development or plot development or pacing. And I think that's because of kind of instilling that process in my brain of what to look for. That helps me now.
And so now, how do you decide to take on authors beyond the manuscript? So, what traits are you looking for, if any?
Ooh, that's a good question. I'm very intentional about the authors that I represent, not just the stories, uh, but the kinds of people they are too. I don't want uh, not troublemakers, but um, I want people to be here for the right reasons. I want to represent authors from many different backgrounds, different voices. I think there's so many underrepresented voices in the industry, and if I can use my power as an agent, however possible it is to uplift those voices. So that's very important to me and the types of authors that I represent. But also, I really look for an author that, like I said, is in it for the long haul and is in it because they're passionate about what they do and they're just excited to be here. And it's not just a quick, I want to write a book and get money kind of thing. And all of my authors are definitely not those people. We all want money at the end of the day. But definitely that hunger and that drive that I can just tell an author has, that is what I'm looking for beyond just the manuscript.
Right. And now, getting back into the manuscript, so we talked about, pacing, character development. Are there any elements that are just complete, deal breakers? If you see it in a manuscript, you're rejecting. And on the other end, are there any that really kind of pull you in? And if a manuscript has this, you want it.
Oh, that's a good question. Deal breakers besides like my main like trigger warnings that I most likely wouldn't even read the manuscript at that point anyways. Um it would probably come down to the writing, I would say, and that's not to say I won't represent something that is not all the way there, and I think that's a huge part of being an agent is helping someone get a manuscript to a better point and polish it a little bit more. But I think there is something to say about honing your craft and learning how to improve your writing, because I can help, bring out your plot, bring out your characters, help with pacing and tension and romantic development and everything like that. But at the end of the day, I cannot write your book for you. So the writing has to be there for me at least to see the potential. And if it might be too early in that author's career or they're not spending enough time working on their craft or reading craft books or trying to continue writing something else or finding a genre that works better for them or something like that. And the writing isn't fully bringing me in and it's not where I need it to be, then I would pass on something for that reason. In terms of the opposite of what really pulls me in, aside from really good writing, um, that's a really good question. It's always something I feel like it's different for me for every manuscript. Sometimes it's the plot that I just can't stop thinking about, and it's just such a cool idea that I could never come up with. I'm so intrigued. Sometimes it's the characters that stick with me. I have manuscripts that I offered on that I lost out on that I'm still thinking about those characters to this day. So if you can write a character that just emotionally I can connect to and sticks with me, that's an immediate yes.
Now, do you ever have manuscripts where while you're reading them, it's just okay. It's not bad, it's not great, but for some reason after you finish reading it, you can't stop thinking about that?
Ooh, yeah, I feel like that happens a lot. And I typically know if I'm going to offer on a manuscript at like the 30% mark, I want to say. And I know the percentage because I read manuscripts on my Kindle. So it tells me. But
Yeah.
it's typically pretty early on where I know. And even if it's this is interesting, I may offer on this, I may not. I could not know that until the very end. And it could be something like a plot twist that really like does it for me. So that has happened. I more so am pretty confident earlier on if it's going to be an absolute yes, or if I know I'm not going to represent it at that point, then I will let the author know so I'm not wasting their time, not wasting my time. But yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. Now, how do you balance representing things that you really love, maybe topics that are close to your heart, with the realities of what editors are looking for? So if something's just not trending in publishing, but you love it, what are you going to do?
Ooh, that's a great question. And I love that you said trending. Because I always tell my authors, please do not write trends. Please do not write for the market. Write the book that you want to write. Write the book that you want to read as a reader as well. And the rest will come. The market changes almost every day at this point. Trends are going to come and go. So by the time you write something that's trending right now, it's probably going to be gone when it's actually ready to go in submission. So never worry about that. I think for me, it doesn't come down to what's trending. It's more so identifying what I love as a reader and what I can champion as an agent, which are two very different things. You think they would kind of coincide, and sometimes they do, but there are often manuscripts that I read that I would eat up as a reader and like stay up till 2 a.m. reading, and it's like perfect for me. But as an agent, I don't have that pull or that connection to it, or I don't have an editorial vision for it. I don't know what I would do with it, kind of thing. And that happens a lot, and I have to share that with the author. And I know it's heartbreaking to hear, but it really is in their best interest because you do want an agent that has a good vision for your book and can champion it. And we're going to be reading this thing like 3 to 4 times, maybe more, depending on what's needed on it. So it has to be something not just that I love, but that I can work on multiple times and have a vision for. And sometimes there is a disconnect for me there, and I have to identify what I would love as a reader and what I am a best fit for as an agent.
Right. And so when you say a best fit for as an agent, what does that mean? What do you think is missing in a manuscript that you can't champion? Is it like the editorial vision or even knowing which editors to submit to?
Yeah, I think it comes down to vision. I don't think there's necessarily anything missing. It just means it's not a right fit for me and maybe my taste. Because again, my taste as an agent and my taste as a reader are a little bit different. I try not to represent things too much that I would read all the time as well because I have a different like hat on my head, I guess, when I'm editing and things like that. I also try not to represent things too similar to each other at the same time as well. So that might be something. It might have other similar elements that's in another story that one of my authors is currently working on that no one in the world would know that, but that does stand out to me as something that I don't know how to make it work. But it could just be vision at the end of the day, as vague and unhelpful as that sounds, but just like a gut intuition and feeling. And it doesn't necessarily mean anything's wrong with the manuscript. It just would be a better fit for someone else that's going to read it and go, oh, I know exactly what to do with this.
Right. I want to get into something that you're interested in that really fascinates me, and that is
Okay.
ecofiction.
Yes.
I'm so excited to talk about this because I haven't seen anyone else, any other agents for sure, talking about this. And so when I started my undergrad degree, I went into environmental studies because I was very, very interested in the state of the world in that sense. So can you tell me a little bit about ecofiction? What is it?
Yeah. Oh, I'm so excited. And I love this because so many people point out that, not too many agents are looking for this, but I think it's happening now. And I don't know if it's because I have put it out there so much or what. I'm not going to take credit for it because so many people should be looking for it. But eco fiction essentially is fiction stories that have some sort of environmental theme. And I want to be clear that that does not mean dystopian. So we see a lot of in like taking that as, oh, a young adult dystopian story or like Hunger Games, not necessarily eco-fiction. That's more post-apocalyptic, and that is a near future kind of world of what can happen if climate change comes in and things like that. But that's more in the fantasy sense. I am speaking more to grounded, modern, contemporary eco-fiction. So stories where maybe a group is trying to save a species from extinction, and we go through the challenges of that, or climate change is actively affecting a community, or hurricanes. You can do different twists on things and add a little fantastical element to it. But as long as it's grounded in the environmental theme is the central part of the story, sustainability, anything, to do with glacier melts or global warming or anything like that too. Protesting and things like that, I think are super important. But for me, my background is also in environmental studies. So I did my undergrad in environmental studies, and then I worked in higher education and sustainability. And that's what I was doing my master's for, was to go into sort of something like environmental policy. Um, yes, it's all coming together, right? So it's something I've been passionate about since I was young, and the environment is super important to me. So if I can incorporate that in publishing somehow and run with it, I'm so excited to do that.
Are there any books you would recommend that focus on ecofiction?
Yes. Oh, and I made a TikTok about this with like my favorite. We also call it cli-fi, like
Ooh,
climate
I like
fiction
that.
reads.
Yeah.
Um, and like Parable of Sour is a really good one, and that is, it kind of leans more literary into the nonfiction space as well. But that's one of my favorites. Orleans is a really good ecofiction fantasy, and it is essentially about a city based on New Orleans that is ravished by hurricanes and damage. Those are some of my favorites that I really enjoy, but there's some other really great ones out there.
So, what advice would you give to authors that are writing in this genre in terms of, doing the research, putting together the story, also just being sensitive to real life experiences?
Yeah, I would say if you can, try to find something in your own community that's happening around you. I think every city, every state, every part of the world is experiencing some sort of environmental disaster or concern or something that affects the world, but there should be something that probably affects your community as well. And so think about that as well. Any take on environmental justice as well, because that is a huge uh, problem that we have in our country, of things that are happening and they're only happening in specific communities for whatever reason that may be. So, leaning into stories like that, I think, are super important. Doing the research, of course, speaking to others, though, also, if you don't have direct experience with it, you can always reach out and find researchers or those that are in that field if you're writing something specific that has a lot of science base to it. But yeah, see, find what's in your own backyard, I would say.
Now, the environmental justice is really selling me because I'm also a lawyer. I'm like, oh
Oh,
my gosh,
yes.
just bring these together.
Please. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, I love that. Yeah, I wrote a lot of articles on environmental justice during my undergrad and my early grad school days, so it's something I'm super passionate about.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And are you still writing now as an agent?
It's a great question. I should be, but I am not. I started out as a writer and I wrote my books before I ever became an agent. So I had a kind of one path for myself, and then that completely changed in the best way possible. And so now my priorities have shifted a ton, and I'm perfectly content with that. And I love being an agent, being a freelance editor as well, doing all kinds of other things in publishing. It has taken over my life, and I do not regret that one bit. So that's kind of where my focus is right now.
That's fantastic. And one of my good friends, Ramessa, actually, I think she worked with you with your editorial side.
Yes, I love her. She just did one of my first coaching sessions because I'm now offering coaching as well.
Yeah, she could not stop talking about how wonderful that experience was. So I just think that's so fantastic. How do you balance it all?
Y- Great question. I wish I had an answer for that. Um, It's hard. I think I'm very organized, and then chaos happens. I feel like my desk is just organized chaos. So spreadsheets are very helpful for me. I schedule everything out, so even edits that I have to do every day, I have that on my calendar and my schedule of what days I'm going to do this manuscript, what days I'm going to do this one, and I blend in sort of agenting work and editing work at the same time with that too, because my authors that I represent are also priority to me, of things that they have to get done, especially when we're trying to get things out on submission and things like that as well. So I kind of move in stages at the same time. So when someone is kind of taken care of here, then I focus on getting this next person to this certain stage. So I think that helps me scheduling it all out and seeing it written down. I'm a very visual
Yeah.
person, but other than that, chaos.
Well, it sounds like you're very organized, actually. So I find that very impressive.
Thank you. I try.
So now, in terms of the manuscript, how do you collaborate with your authors? What are you doing in terms of the work? What do they take on? And also in terms of shaping their careers as writers, how does that kind of divide look?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I, from the very beginning, like as soon as we get on a call to offer representation, I come to that call with ideas for revisions for their story. And I go through them kind of in a broad sense. We don't go too in the nitty gritty, but just an overview of what my thoughts would be, because I want them to know that up front before signing with me to know this is my vision for the story. And if you disagree with it and you have a different vision, then that might mean I'm not the agent for you, and that's completely fine. But I want them to know that up front so they know what they're getting into. But then at the same time, I treat my relationship with my authors as a collaboration, as a partnership. So I don't want it to be just me telling them what to do or vice versa. I want it to be me guiding them. That's what I'm here for, to use my experience and my knowledge to help them be the best that they can be. And that requires a certain level of trust that they have to put in me, that I ask of them to take my direction. And sometimes there might be discussion about that. So, and I'm completely open to that. So if I share feedback with an author and they're like, this doesn't work quite so right with me. This is not what I was trying to do here. Can we talk about this? We get on a call, we hash it out, and we find a solution together. That's what I always ask. It's not, I'm saying no to this and we're doing it this way. It's we're going to talk about this and make it collaborative and make it feel like a more of a process. So we do that. And then after they sign with me, then they get their full edit letter, which goes into more detail. There's comments in the manuscript as well. They start working on revisions. And I let that be up to them. Some of my authors like deadlines, some of them do not. And everyone has a life, right? Like kids, family, school, whatever it may be. So I know things get in the way. So I just ask that they keep me in the loop. We stay in communication about things. And if they have questions as they revise, I'm here for that as well. But they, for the most part, take it and run with it. And then they come back and send me something that blows my mind. And I had no clue that they would even like take one small idea and turn it into like 1,000 other new ones. So that's my favorite part. Um, but we go through a couple rounds of revision and then get it on submission and get it out there to editors.
And then once an author is out on submission, what does that look like? Do they typically start working on something new? Do you recommend that they go on social media and say that they're on sub, or do you try not to advertise it?
Yeah, I think the announcing of it is dependent on the author and what they want to do. It doesn't, make or break anything either way. Sometimes it can be helpful if an editor sees it and they are interested. They could comment or reach out to me and say they saw this post, they would love to see it, kind of thing. But at the same time, it's not going to hurt them if they don't do that also, because they're not the ones sending it out there. That's me and my connections. So um, in terms of process, I'm very transparent in my process, so they're pretty clued in on kind of where everything is and what the status is. And I tell them to start working on the next thing. Some of my authors already have the next thing ready to go, and the next thing after that, and after that. So some of them never stop writing, and it's wonderful. But for everyone else, they are already working on the next thing, and that can take some time. But we do want to focus on that because submission right now is very different. And I became an agent after COVID, but I know from speaking with my mentors and my colleagues, COVID really impacted publishing in terms of just timeline and everything as well. Editors are so busy. There's more agents than there are editors now. So things are taking a longer time than they used to. So submission can be anywhere from 2 weeks to 2 or 3 years, I've seen at this point. So, we don't wanna sit around and do nothing during that time. Always work on the next thing, have something else ready to go, for when and if that time comes that you need to sort of swap projects out or send something new out into the world.
So now what is some advice that you would give? This is a two-part question
Okay.
to writers that are trying to get their work out there and also to those that are looking to get into agenting.
Mm. To writers, my best advice is, 1, write the book, finish it, and then use beta readers or critique partners. Don't send it out too early. That was the mistake I made as a writer. I wrote a book and sent it out to all these top tier agents and thought I was going to be the next best thing. And no, I was quickly educated that I was wrong. So don't do that and take your time with it. It might feel like there's a sense of urgency to get it out there because an agent's going to close, or you don't know when they're going to open again, or if they're not going to be looking for this in a couple months when it's actually ready. But don't worry about that. Like, agents will reopen. We're always looking for new things. So write on your own time and make sure that it is the best that it can possibly be before getting it out there. And use beta readers, use critique partners, get that feedback. It's super helpful. And don't be afraid to take some constructive criticism as well. Like, that can be super helpful to an author's perspective, an author's manuscript. Try to distance yourself from making it personal and more so learning how to hone your craft. For people interested in aging, I would say start looking into internships and start applying and do what I didn't do and do multiple internships at different agencies. Uh, Sometimes, yes, you can do one internship and get promoted within that agency, or you can then do another internship, get some more experience, and go to maybe a bigger agency or something like that to get started out with. But yeah, don't be afraid to learn as much as you can while you're in a position where you don't have to make those tough decisions.
I love that you say not to start querying too early when you're talking about advice for writers. I think that is probably universally the biggest mistake that people make. And I did the same thing. Last summer I had just written my first manuscript ever, and I met this fantastic agent, absolutely adored her, thought I have to work with her. And she expressed interest, so I sent the manuscript way too early. I haven't even given it time to sit at this point to do edits. And of course, she rejected. But I did get very lucky. This story has a happy ending because she said she would like to see future work. And
Yay.
so I re-queried her this summer with my next manuscript, and now she's my agent.
Yay!
So,
I love that.
yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So, but yes, I definitely made that mistake of sending out my manuscript too early. And, it's so hard to be patient, but publishing is so slow. It's
It
just,
is so slow, and it's so hard agents take a while to get back to you on a query. They take even longer to get back to you on a full manuscript because we have so many other things on our plate, and that unfortunately comes to one of the last things that we do. So we're taking our time, so take your time too. You're entitled to that, and
yeah,
make it the best you can be. Most agents are open to seeing future work or open to seeing revised work, so it's not necessarily that you only have one shot. But if
yeah,
you think about it like you only have one shot, then that might help change your mindset a little bit and put more work into your story so that it's as ready as it can possibly be before sending it out.
for sure. Yeah. So now looking back, what has been the most impactful or rewarding moment in your career as an agent thus far?
Oh, that's a great question. Hmm. So much happens that, like, we can't talk about, and I hate that. So I would say rewarding so far for me, I think, is moving to a new agency, if I can say that. Because I recently switched to creative media agency, and I joined their team earlier this year, and I think that has made a world of difference for me, for my authors, for the career that I want and where I wanna go. And I'm so grateful to be able to represent the authors that I do and have this community that I do as well. I've started, being more active on social media which is a plus and minus, but I really enjoyed connecting with authors there. And I think there's a lot of times that I'll post a tip or something that is not mine and it's like free on the internet and it's common knowledge, but for some reason in that space, it connects with a specific author or something and it helps them either write their story or get an agent or something of that sense. And that feels really good to be a part of that and to help people however I can. I think that's, yeah, what I'd say be the most rewarding is we look at agents as these gatekeepers in publishing, and publishing itself has this nuance of the secret keeping and stuff that is public knowledge that for some reason gets hidden behind a paywall or a barrier of some sort. And so that's what I want to do. That's something I know I'm trying to do on my podcast with Carlene Geisler Publishing, is to break down those barriers a little bit and not be so gatekeepy and so secret keeping. And so when we can do that and get a good response and make an impact on those authors, that's very rewarding.
I love that so much. And I was going to say, I heard you talk about switching agencies on Flublishing, and I loved that episode. It was super
Yes.
fascinating. So yes, anybody listening, after you're done this episode, go give Andie's podcast a listen, Flublishing. Very good. And I actually
Please.
noticed that on Flublishing, it says subscribers to this podcast also enjoy the Pros.
We
I
love
was
it.
so flattered. I'm like, oh my gosh, to be associated with them? Yes, I will take it.
Oh, you're killing it. Yeah, we love it. We love supporting other creators, other authors as much as possible. I think that's the best part about this community is it's viewed as a competition, but it's really not. Like, we're all here to lift each other up, and agents are in direct competition with each other, but there's so many of us in different communities just trying to lift each other up and help support one another. Authors are the same way, agents to authors, things like that too. I think it's all, hopefully for the most part, as we try to be one sort of big happy family.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. Well, thank you, Andie, so much for joining me today. This was just fantastic. I really enjoyed chatting.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
And thank you all so much for tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Pros podcast. And remember to check back next Tuesday for a new episode.